Hi, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. One of the topics we particularly want to discuss and analyze is actually with people home working again, looks like now for another 3 to 6 months, how do we build greater communication, employee engagement and communication, and ensure that's growing? But actually, how do we build trust? Trust is one of the big issues that's constantly being brought up. How do we build trust in technology and the use and how making sure that the information is going to be used in the correct way? Xander, can I just open that up with you first?
Yeah, of course. So new technologies, adapting new technologies is always a very tough thing to do, right? If the bigger the business is, the more layered the hierarchy is, and the tougher it is to get an idea from HQ to the front line. And making it a mandatory thing doesn't do the trick per se. It doesn't even matter what type of technology it is. The first step is making it mandatory, but people are not using it, will not use it if there's no trust. So the big question here is, when you just raised it, how do you build that trust? I don't have the answer. I don't have the silver bullet, but the answer should lay somewhere between the balance in making it mandatory and making it a fun and easy tool to use, right? If it's a very tough thing to use, people won't be adapting the technology. If it's an easy thing to use, people might adapt it, but still there needs to be a lot of trust. And now more than ever, if people are working around the globe, they're working remotely, and looking at all the new restrictions popping up around the globe. I think the UK had a tough news update yesterday. People probably will stay working remotely for the upcoming time. So how do you get the group together? And that's the main worry for a lot of businesses currently.
Well, it is particularly amongst millennials, because millennials like to communicate and are probably more skilled at using technology. So it is that piece about leaders having to adapt and actually build that trust of millennials, because we've been talking about this gulf between the generations, which hasn't never been as great as everyone says, but somehow we've got to bridge that trust piece anyway. I mean, that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is, they will find their way, right? So if they don't trust the tool that you as a business owner or an exec are providing, if they don't trust that, they will choose another system that they do trust. Yeah. Communicating over the HQ provided communication channel. If that doesn't come off the ground, they will jump into WhatsApp or Instagram chat or whatever. There are a gazillion tools out there, and this should be the big challenge that the C-level should worry about. How do you build that trust?
Yeah, because your perspective from Asia, can I ask, what are you seeing?
Right. So I think in Asia it's a bit different than that. So the problem we're getting is that people do not trust the corporate provided channel. Reason being that they don't trust the reliability of the channel and they don't trust the security of that channel, something like that, right? So I think when we roll that out, right, the first thing we need to do is that we need to be able to make sure that we understand what's the rules and the guidelines that will be taken upon them, right? Meaning that, for example, we be able to be communicating really clear that all the communication will not be disclosed to anybody, not even HR or anyone else to be able to read the channel, and your information is strictly confidential at all times, something like that, to get them to actually be comfortable with the system first, right? And then after that, there is I think it's the usability side now, right? So the one of the really important and really difficult things to overcome is that how do you get people to switch from WhatsApp or Messenger or Line, right, into your communication channel, right? It needs to be not only like a bit better, but it needs to be 10 times better than that, right? How do you provide more functions into that, right? And that's another challenge that the corporates always have right now. I think they start to learn that a lot of these channels, right, they're not designed for corporates. They're not designed for hundreds of people to talk to each other all the time or the whole day. They're not designed for people to bring the agenda forward and have like hundreds of agendas, hundreds of video calls running in the same closed system. Right? And that's where it's the corporate design system will actually take precedent on that. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really fascinating point, isn't it? Because actually, in this market, we want everyone talking as much as possible internally together, so people feel connected. Okay. And that's actually one of the messages to get across to people, isn't it?
Correct. And actually, the other point that we've seen is that a different type of trust that actually becomes a problem when we start working from home is the trust between team and people. Right? It's no longer the trust between the system. Right, and that happens because when you're in the office, right, there's a lot of interaction, subtle interaction that happens behind the scene. You ask about your family, their family, you tell about your trip, something like that, and that's all disappear when you start to work from home. But it becomes like a meeting call. When you start a meeting, it immediately goes into whatever agenda is set to be, and that's actually once you start doing that for a long time. You start to lose the sense of friendship, and your colleague will start to question on whether are you still okay with me, something like that, right? And that one actually is not only the technology, but it's the culture and the way we roll out the engagement process here. Right? So what we do in our first quarter that we start working from home is that we start to roll this thing out, right? So it's like every day at 6 o'clock, we're gonna have like knowledge sharing, news update of the people around you, something like that, to make it more personal and to make things not so they know that office is not the only place to go and work. It's the other place for you to go and interact with people, to ask about other people's family, to ask about how are you, something like that. And that's the other important thing that I think the leader should really emphasize on that and drive the change. Right? They need to be the example and lead the way on that too.
Absolutely spot on. I mean, that's part of the debate at the moment. There's 2 points that makes me think about. One, people are saying that the video conferencing only has a limitation, but you never build a relationship or trust. So there needs to be other routes to that, and we need real relationships. But also the second piece is that offices need to become much more compassionate, caring environments to engage people back into them.
And I think a lot of what we are talking about constantly is what is the value proposition? How are you doing more than just communicating? Like you say, it's not just a transaction. It's about culture. It's about proper engagement, real relationships, which we do have friendships, and there's lots of people feeling really isolated. So how are you enabling real communication and giving businesses a value proposition that they can go to their staff and say, I know you're on WhatsApp, but we can do more than just communicate, and you can still engage with your family. It is like, because for a lot of people, work is family, and you can still engage with them in a valued kind of way.
Yeah, and you just hit a key point. If you want the people, the staff, to engage, to start using new technology, the staff itself needs to see the added value, right? A lot of the original technology out there, the added value is only there for HR or maybe HQ, and probably the both of them. But the people rolling the system out, they see the added value. They get more productivity, they get more reporting, they get more statistics about the stuff. But once the front line sees the added value themselves, it's easier to communicate. It's much more fun to work together. It's more productive to use these tools. Then people will start adopting it, and the trust will follow.
Yeah, and that's the real challenge now, isn't it? Because potentially if we have another 6 months working from home, then we're talking about almost a full year away from the office. I mean, that's going to be incredibly hard to try and build culture after that, unless we actually start getting these tools into the system now. Is that fair?
That is fair. Yeah. I haven't met Art in real life yet. We've been colleagues for a couple of months now. I feel I know him, but we haven't shaken hands yet.
Are you missing that social interaction yourselves?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I do miss it, but I've got a full house with a lot of people, with a lot of social and emotional interaction. So I'm not experiencing a gap. So it's not a top priority, but thinking about it, yes, I definitely miss the face-to-face, the traveling, meeting new people. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's really easy to meet a lot of new people, right? In the old days, you needed to, the old days, hear me. Previously, you needed to travel for a couple of hours to come somewhere. And now you just open up your Zoom meeting and you can meet 8 new people in one day.
Oh, look, it's very straight. Lauren and I talk about this. When you have to travel into London now, it actually feels like you're losing time. We've got so used to being able to work from actually our desks that actually productivity seems to get hard by go back to the old ways, which is also going to be one of the challenges.
Yes. I miss the lunches though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was like some off time with the people you work with and
right.
having different type of conversations. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. It is amazing how that sort of traveling to meetings, which was just built into your day, now is quite a stressful thing, because it is, gosh, I've lost 3 hours and I could have done so much more. So it's definitely, when we go into the new world, there's going to still, I think, be this hybrid place between meeting people in real life. But I think we've, like you say, Xander, we've connected with so many people globally, and we've engaged in it in a totally different way and accessed new audiences like we've never had before. So it's how we work out this hybrid model that ticks all the boxes from the good boxes from the old world, like the lunches and the handshakes, and then the productivity and the efficiency of the new world. And obviously, you know, communication and engagement is going to sit at the heart of all of that.
Great. Art, how are you finding things on your side?
Right. So I think, I live in Bangkok, so we spend like forever on the road normally, right? So yeah, it's been a gift of time. So it's it turns out we have got a lot of time to do a lot more, right? But the one of the difficulty, again, it's a balance here, right? Once you've got more time, again, you lost the communication channel, the most important communication channel, which is physical communication, right? So it's I think what we have been all been doing is that we're trying to find the right balance between what's good for the new way of communication, right? For example, it's been really difficult to onboard new people and create a meaningful connection with them, right? Especially we onboarded people from France or recently like Malaysia, something like that, right? And we have never met them in person, right? We interviewed them through this Zoom, Google Meet, that kind of thing, right? And then after that, we onboard them. They start the first day. How do we make sure that they trust us on whatever we're giving them, right? And how do we make them, how do we trust them too, right? How do we trust the new porter? How do we make sure that they understand what our mission is and they understand what they need to do exactly, right? And that's been a really difficult thing when you don't have the physical interaction. It turns out that you need to set up a proper session with them. Like first is the culture, then it's just the talk about your family, your life, personal life, and then after that get to know them over time, right? But that doesn't happen like without an effort. It's not like you come to office and that naturally develop. That disappear, right? You need to find that right balance, I think, and that's been one of the challenges that we're facing too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because actually one of the big discussions with a major accountancy company recently, they've just bringing on all their graduates, something like 150 graduates, and they're all working from home. So how do you get those young people joining a company into the right disciplines? I mean, it's a real task, isn't it?
Correct.
And again, the kind of communication tools are actually key to get those actually joining together somehow, linking together, because otherwise that's going to be a hell of a HR challenge once we start coming out of this process. But what kind of feedback are you getting from your clients as well, can I ask? Because your clients are very much global around the world. What kind of feedback are you getting?
So I think.
Go ahead.
Okay, Xander.
Go ahead, Art.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I think from my so I'm from Convolab, right? So our clients will mainly be like the digital savvy client. It's been for them, and actually I think it's a way for them to force themselves into the new world, right? So it turns out like one of the clients is like one of the biggest bank in Thailand, right? What it turns out is that they need to shift every single service from offline channel to online within like 2 months, right? Because there's no more offline channel for them, right? So it's been a really good driving force for them actually, right? And so I think that is a kind of a joke on the internet that what's the best driving force for the digital transformation? It turns out it's COVID, because you're against the wall already, right? And that's what happens with a lot of our clients too. And actually, they also have difficulty communicating at first, right? So we have used to have a lot of meeting with them. It all gets converted to Microsoft Teams and other video conferencing call. It turns out that we spend a lot more time on the conference call. It's like, okay, we don't have to drive anymore, but we start our work at 9 a.m. in the morning. It lasts until 10 p.m. at night, right? And that's not really a productive meeting, right? So we are forced to change ourselves in that way to try to be more efficient.
Yeah, I understand. That's actually really interesting. Xander, your perspective?
It matches what Art just shared. Our customers are obviously biased technology-wise, because pre-COVID they already chose to go for a communication tool as we provide. So they are obviously the type of user that see the added value of using such a system. That being said, once COVID hit, we saw a spike both in adoption rates as in the number of messages going back and forth, right? Overnight, instantly everybody needed to cope with the situation and work remotely and provide service contactless. So it's done us good.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we always joke because we always are very much face-to-face traditionally. Suddenly we've had to learn to be online. So again, it's one of those things you just got to adapt as we go. And the companies are going to be even forced to adapt, because I think when we forget that when we started in March, everyone assumed it would be out by June.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in September, and actually we're facing still a very uncertain winter ahead. So I wonder whether people will now have to start adapting, learning new methods. There's much more of a catalyst now.
Yes, definitely. With all the new restrictions, they're sort of the same as the last, well, let's say wave, but they're sort of different again as well. So it's really interesting to see how businesses will cope with it and maybe pivot. So, I mean, these events not happening again, it's very obvious. And in my career, I've been running trade shows and events, gazillion times. And the fun thing is, during these events and during these trade shows, everybody on the floor said, nah, events are dead, but you still do it. And now this happened, right? So what should you do if you're an owner of the Excel halls or the Olympia? What are you going to do? You need to cope. You need to find new ways.
We're doing a webinar on that this afternoon, and actually asking exactly those kind of people those questions. So I'm expecting quite a lively session, so it should be quite interesting.
Yeah.
And how are you forecasting the future? How do you see the future changing? I mean, you must see this, I suppose, as an opportunity for digitalization becoming much more central now in all businesses.
Yes, definitely. So future-wise, nobody knows. Obviously, I don't know, but I do have some expectations. First of all, technology is here to stay. We already knew that, but this is a validation of that. One of the things that I've always been saying during the last couple of months, whatever is happening right now was due coming anyways, right? Any crisis, if it's a financial crisis or even a pandemic crisis, doesn't bring new things. It only brings stuff that it accelerates things that were already coming. And it in this case it validated working remotely and saving on commute and communicating and collaborating using technology more. So that first prediction, it's here to stay. That's not a tough thing to predict. Everybody understands that. But going forward, if you look at the adoption rate of technology, right, in the last couple of, I don't know, decades, people have been, well, asked by their employers to adopt new technology more and more and more. And the prediction was always that it will help save time and be more productive. And now I'm quoting Gartner and the McKinseys and everything. Productivity didn't went up. It actually went down. Simultaneously, people started working more, right? Where we used to work 40 hours, we are now working 50 hours plus. Please allow for most of the data coming from the US and Europe, it's a little bit different, but we are following that trend most of the times. So people are not more productive. They got a gazillion tools to work with. So if I have to make a prediction, there's going to be a need to bring that all together, right? It doesn't help to have 20 apps on your home screen. You need one app, and that's the thing that you need to use. So that's some way, somehow, where I think the market will start asking for, and well, the offerings will follow the question, obviously. And on top of that, one of the things that you see happening in the market as well is that companies have always been talking about customer experience, right? You need to think about the customer they are paying, but not about the employee experience. If you look at most HR tools out there, they are all focusing on onboarding, on offboarding, and prior to that, the recruitment. But if you look at company reviews on Glassdoor and the likes, the negative reviews are never about one of these processes. They're never about salary as well. They're always about the company culture. So those two things together, think about the employee experience, as we've been doing about the customer experience for years already, and bringing a lot of tools together. Those two things combined, that's somewhere I think the future lays. And that's definitely somewhere where we as a business are working to as well. Yeah.
Art, what are your views?
All right. So yeah, actually, in Thailand, we gonna see this trend happening already, right? So we have no new COVID case inside the country for like 100 days. I think we only have one case in 100 days, which we can safely say that it's already quite safe here. But for some reason, companies still work from home these days, right? Banks, whatever conglomerate, they're still working from home, right? Because they start to realize that, hey, this is really good for them. Right? And it saves a lot of cost for them. It's efficiency goes through the roof. We need to just tune on the productivity side, right? And I think it's the new normal that will be here to stay for a while at least, or maybe forever here, right? And if you look at that new normal, right, there's basically at the core of that is that people takes the engagement online, digital, right? So I think that's we have three kind of prediction on three sides of the engagement, right? So the first one is employee engagement, or what we call the internal engagement, right? And that's where we predict that they'll, again, like Xander said, they will be looking for one single tool that allows them to communicate, to transact, to play around, to whatever, have their communication, their office life within that application, right? And that's one of our prediction, right? The other prediction is actually the communication between the business and the customer, right? Because this one is severely impacted too. The customer needs to be able to walk into the store and buy your product, or should just be able to walk to the bank and then whatever, right? That doesn't happen anymore, right? And that actually got accelerated into what we call chats, right? They start to go online, they start to call when your phone line cannot scale. They go to your Facebook, they go to your WhatsApp, and they just start chatting, spamming your website, right? And that's where we want to help the organization transform in that sense, right? And that's why we have Convolab here to help you transform yourself from just traditional offline channel, quickly take that online, and whatever chatbot or you want an agent to talk to them, at least there's already an online engagement.
No, I get that.
Customer to business to B2C engagement here, right? And the last one is actually C2C engagement. So if you look at the last type of engagement, is your customer talking to each other on your channel, right? They would want to communicate. They want to sit in the store and talk to your friends or something like that. right? Airline, it means like they want to take your flight and then talk to your colleagues, to their colleagues, to their friends, something like that, right? So we want to recreate that sense of personal community communication. And that's why we are capturing another market, what we call with another product called Abstract. This is where we want to allow the company to create their own community online within their brand, right? Within their application channel, something like that. And that's why we are driving these three products really hard, because it's the core behind the new normal here.
That's really interesting, isn't it? And obviously in Bangkok, you've obviously got 100 days with hardly any cases. Are you seeing behaviors change as well?
Behavior, I think you mean pre-COVID and post-COVID, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Is there now a real change?
So yes, so it's kind of like when COVID happened, a lot of things changed immediately, because I mean, I think Thai people are a bit like, I would say, really cautious, right? So on the really first day, even before our case exceed like 100 people, we already wear masks. Every single person on the street wear masks already, right? So they're really quick to change, and they start working from home. People, enterprise start to adapt that, right? But then after that, when it gets better, the things doesn't really fall back down. Like we can see a bit of trends that, okay, it goes up like that, and then it kind of fall back down like that, but it's not at the same level, right? So what we can assume from that trend is that this thing is really here to stay, right? Because it's already gone from Thailand, actually, right? And people are still working from home. People are still wearing masks. People are still communicating via digital channels instead of seeing each other, right? And that's really quite interesting to see that, right? It's people kind of absorb that into their lifestyle already, right?
I think that's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it sums up that things are here to change for probably forever. Thank you for your time. Lauren, anything you'd like to, I'm conscious of time.
Yes, no, absolutely great. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It's so interesting. We are constantly looking at different views from different parts of the world, and it's so interesting to be able to share this. So thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us. And you're right, digital's here to stay. And we've been on a very interesting journey ourselves at EP, because, you know, we're very personal, and we like handshakes and lunches and meeting people. And we've had to embrace the technology very, very quickly. And it was a steep learning curve, but I think with your support and a variety of others, we're getting there, and I hope everybody else is too. So thank you for your time.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.